Welcome back to Content to Cashflow. This is part two of our series. Today we have so much to share about, finding your buyer on LinkedIn. And it's safe to say that we geek out on this stuff. Like moments ago, Mike and I, and we'll kind of get into, our introductions, everything we're going to talk about, but like literally moments ago, Mike and I realized that we first started our connection on the platform.
And
That was awesome.
and we're already, look at all this magic happening. So we are living proof that this platform brings all the good connections.
100%. We're totally gonna get into that more because I feel like I'm not done with that one yet. But I want to start off by kicking it over to Micah to introduce herself ahead of our session.
Oh, yes. So my name is Micah Williamson. I am the Chief Strategist and Storyteller for Micah Raquel Consulting. We help our clients use their stories to build trust, drive engagement, and increase revenue. And we do that through a lot of different things like target audience work, brand positioning, messaging, integrated marketing strategy. And yeah, I'm super excited to have this conversation. As Tiffany said, we really nerd out about these things. So I'll pass the mic back to you and then we can really dig deep.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Tiffany Knighton. I'm the founder and CEO of Brand Curators. We are an award winning PR and brand management agency that specializes in helping influential people and brands build, amplify, and monetize. Mike and I put together this conversation again as just like this is such a testament to not only the success that we've seen for ourselves on LinkedIn, but what we've been able to see for our clients, and the fact that it has been like a number one revenue generator for both of us, with the businesses that we've built for ourselves, and has been sustaining us. So we'd love to share, more about some of the kind of like case studies and examples of people who have had success on LinkedIn, some that might surprise you too, and some different forms of ways that people have been able to like really connect with their target audience. But before we do that, why don't we talk a little bit about what we discussed last night, Micah?
Yes, no, I might be a little biased, but I think we dropped some gems last night, Tiffany.
I think so too.
But
I think so too.
I think the main thing that we started the conversation out was just making the case for LinkedIn. We showed a lot of statistics that show the power of sales and lead gen that happens on the platform. Knowing that the decision makers are there and they're there to transact, they're there to do business. So people are already in the mood or in the mindset to buy. And so it's just kind of this perfect environment for you to capitalize on when it comes to outreach and sales. Um, we also talked a little bit about how to start defining your brand story. So looking inward and outward, right, to understand your why and how that aligns with what's happening in the marketplace. And so we wanted to kind of give you guys just a solid foundation, understand why we're making this case. Like we're not just making this up, but there are some data and insights that support our observations. And then we wanted to just kind of give you some of the foundational tools to start thinking about how you can engage on the platform. So, Tiffany, why don't you tell them what we're going to talk a little bit more about today?
Oh, yes. We, everything that you just said was just, again, scratching the surface and kind of getting familiar. But today we're going to dive a little deeper. Been a lot of people who we've spoken to. I had mentioned yesterday that, we did a survey where we interviewed, all of these different business owners and what their needs are, what their pain points are, et cetera. And a lot of people know that they need to be on LinkedIn. Like they kind of understand that. They kind of know that, of course, this is like a platform where people do business, and they know that there is some sort of story to tell, but they don't really know how to tell it. They don't really know how to connect with people that actually like resonate with that story. And they want to be able to find these clients and customers and be able to do it in a seamless way so that it's kind of like almost running itself.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some examples of how people have done it. It's
Yeah.
something that Mike and I, would love to be able to walk you through one-on-one, and we have more information about how you could work with us directly to do that. But we also have some resources and tools that you can get your hands on if you're not ready to do so, or just stick around and we'll just drop, some more gems for the next 25 minutes or so. So let's talk about success stories and ways that LinkedIn have impacted us successfully.
Yeah, so I always like to use myself as an example because, it's like I'm practicing what I preach. And so, I use a story of last year, maybe around like middle of 2023, I was really struggling like sales wise and not could not find like I was not generating business through my marketing basically. And so I joined a sales accelerator, invested a lot of money in the sales accelerator and learned so much. And a lot of what we learned was about LinkedIn. And so essentially what I did is I scratched my whole social strategy and I just focused on understanding my buyer, understanding how what type of content would resonate with my buyer. And I just spent a lot of time iterating on my content on LinkedIn. And I actually posted some stuff today, like in the last year, it's been like 1,000% growth, 800% growth in other areas. I mean, it's just like wild numbers that we would love to show clients, right?
Yes.
I, and so I use this tool, and I want to caveat this by also saying, like, you have to know your lane, right? Like, you have to know your industry. Like, I'm a B2B service provider. And so usually like those types of decision makers are different. So if you're a B2C company, your strategy might not look exactly the same, but there's still space on the platform. And I think that that's also what we want to get your wheels turning is like you don't have to be a traditional professional services provider like ourselves. You can also be a B2C company, you could be a creator. And so I think that's a perfect segue to tell your story about Jade, Tiffany, because I think she's killing the game when it comes to bringing the creator vibes and making space for creatives on the Briefcase app.
Yes, the briefcase app. I love that she has rebranded and reframed this mindset around what it looks like to be a creator on the platform.
Hmm.
Like everything that you said, like there's so much potential, but you think that it's not necessarily creative space and that it's this buttoned up space.
Hmm.
But what Jade I. Powell has been able to do is she's been able to have this unique voice and make a name for herself where she's able to be authentic. She's able to connect with her audience in a way that feels natural to her. The way
Yeah.
that she's using LinkedIn is like, she's talking to her friends, like she's on,
Yes.
Twitter or Instagram or any of those types of platforms. But she's been able to really monetize the platform from that. Instead of coming super buttoned up like the Briefcase app and feeling like somebody other than herself, she's leaned into being very unserious. And that
Hmm.
has then given her the potential to grow and attract, collaborators, potential clients,
Yeah.
partners, just people who are fans of hers and the things she has to say because she's hilarious.
I'm a fan.
And then that, yeah, no, like cracks me up all the time. Just corporate humor and banter and things that are
Yes.
relatable that can like lift our spirits and is kind of a breath of fresh air on the app. And she's been able to monetize it. She's been able to make over $40,000 just this year on brand partnerships because brands really want to buy into that type of voice. And that just kind of shows that there's potential, really, no matter if you are a business owner, an employee, an executive, or a creator.
Hmm. No, I think she has carved out a perfect space for herself. And I think that that's also sometimes we forget that that's a great strategy, right? Sometimes
Yeah,
the strategy is to do what everybody else is doing, right? This is what's working for everybody, so we need to do that. But sometimes you can like flip the script and that's your differentiator and that's what makes you stand out, in the sea of sameness, And so
a
I think
hundred percent.
it's like she has perfected that and I love how she just shows up as her true self and that obviously resonates with so many people.
It does. It resonates with people. Everybody, you kind of think that you are, it's a lot harder than it is to find that, target audience. And you might think that you have to kind of shape shift to do it. But really, just kind of thinking about what your audience really needs, asking them, leaning into it is important. But why don't you share with the people some more of those types of tips on how you actually find your ideal target audience, ways that, are kind of more tangible or even somewhere to start.
Yes. So I'm going to say two things. The first thing is like, it's kind of obvious, right? But like, look at who you're already serving. Like, look historically at who your clients and customers have been. What trends do you notice? Are they moms? Are they teenagers? Are they all based in Dallas? Is it during a particular time of the year or is it an industry? You'll notice based on who your current client or customer base is or who it has been historically. And I think another layer to that is that we have so many data and analytics at our fingertips across the different platforms that our businesses use, whether that's your marketing channels, email, social, your website, maybe your point of sale system. There are so many different platforms that we have that give us analytics, and all we have to
Yeah.
do is use them. And the great thing is now with AI, you might look at your analytics and be like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. You know what? You can screenshot them and put them in an AI platform and say, okay, this is the kind of business I am. These are what my numbers look like. What story does this tell? And so don't be overwhelmed by the numbers. They always tell a story. And so that would be the first thing. And then LinkedIn is a powerful tool to you can use your analytics on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is what I love is it gets very granular. It'll say,
Yeah.
okay, like right now, which is why I am so grateful that I worked on my positioning. When I go and look at who my top audience, like what their role is, it's like CEO, founder, director, decision makers, the people that I, need to talk to. And then, if you can also look at, the industry, you can look at the geography. So there's a lot of different ways that you can start to deduce who is in your audience. And if it sometimes you might find that maybe what the analytics show is not who you're trying to reach. That also is some information that says, okay, well, I need to change what I'm doing because I'm attracting the wrong person. And so
Yeah.
those are the places that I think um, that you can start to look. And I think again, like once you kind of have this information, don't feel like you have to analyze it yourself. There's so many different tools that you can put your notes in, your numbers in, and ask for an analysis or give me some insights on what this data means. So I think that is where I would start. But
Hmm.
I'm curious, on your end, Tiffany, like what you would say in terms of, kind of identifying who your audience is, and then how you actually start to engage with them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you mentioned that there's so many tools and ways to engage with them. And it's like there doesn't have to be just one way, to do that, right? Once you identify them and you try to figure out how you're going to reach them, meeting them where they're at, you definitely want to kind of integrate it kind of into your systems. You want to integrate that into kind of like your daily routine. I think of it as like, when you think about checking in with friends and family and that you periodically want to kind of just see how they're doing, and it's a really genuine thing, like you care about their well-being. And I think that you should definitely treat your customer the same way, where you're not just coming to them when you have an ask, but you're thinking about how you're regularly asking meaningful questions and following up after events, asking them what their goals are, what they've been kind of going through, even if that means that you are engaging in comments on a post or helping them uplift something if they're looking maybe for like new team members or whatever it may be, and you're kind of using your network to help their network. Like there's a lot of small things that add up to big things that just show how you're engaging them, and people remember that, and you're over time, because it is a long game. When you're a business owner, you are managing relationships and keeping those relationships going.
Yeah.
So I think it's also kind of a little bit of a mindset shift with engagement, where you're not just kind of turning something on and off when you have an ask or an offer or a sale,
Yeah.
but you're thinking about how you're nurturing that long term. But yeah, but people will return the favor. And the last thing that I want to say about that is just discoverability. I mentioned resharing, and LinkedIn is such a great way to tap into other people's audiences, where you think about some other apps like maybe Instagram, for example, where it's kind of hard to tap into a new audience. You're more so your content's being served to your existing audience. So there's definitely a chance to, even by engaging, leaving comments, sharing, liking, that you're ending up in other people's feeds. So you
Yeah.
kind of got to think of it that way too.
Yeah, no, I love that LinkedIn does that. Like that's really how I discovered Jade. Like I would see some of her really kind of like cutesy cool comments on things, and they had really high engagement. And so that's kind of how I started interacting with some of her content, was through her comments on other people's posts, because she has such a really like unique voice. And so I
Yeah.
mentioned that. And I think the thing too that we were talking about when we did this the first time is that your content on LinkedIn really does have such a long shelf life.
Oh, yes, it does.
With the engaging with the by engaging with content and sharing content, sometimes people are seeing your engagement or seeing your content like a week later. And it, like, on Instagram you might get like 2 or 3 days. I don't even want to talk about Facebook, but
Yeah, no, yeah, no. You get a longer, I don't either. But you do get a longer shelf life with LinkedIn, and like you said, like it's that repetition, like you're seeing certain people liking and commenting and sharing things over and
yeah.
over, and you might stumble upon something that got new life a few weeks down the line. But doing that consistently and figuring out how often you want to engage, how much time you set aside, and which ways you want to engage, all of that definitely comes from having a very intentional plan
Yeah.
and being able to kind of like know how you're doing that. It's hard to just kind of jump in and do that every day. So how can people use integrated marketing plans? How can they kind of look at how these moving parts work together to make their brand messaging more powerful?
Yes, I think that's a great question, Tiffany, and I think it is important that we first kind of define what a integrated marketing plan is, and that's basically just making sure you have different brand channels or different touch points throughout your customer journey for your buyer or potential buyer to interact with you and get closer to the sale, essentially. It's kind of like I read in a book that it's like you have date me content and you have marry me content. And so, you
Oh.
right, like you don't just like skip to the marriage, right? You kind of gotta put in some work first. And so you want to have content that establishes that trust, helps you build some of that brand awareness, that's educational. You're giving away free value so people really start to acknowledge and recognize your authority. But then you also need to have like sales content. And I think we see this often is that, and I've been guilty of this myself, is like you're oversharing educational content and you don't ask, right, for the sale. And we were just talking about this last night. I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times, I think it's this psychological thing. I think a lot of times when we share sales content, it does not always get the highest engagement, or it might not have your highest metrics that you're typically used to seeing if you post something that's more educational or more storytelling, personal type post, right? um
Right.
Not mean that people are not clicking and people are not buying, because
Mm-hmm.
people are watching, people are consuming the content. They see you. If they see your other content, they like your other content, they're seeing this content too. So just
Yeah.
because that content doesn't generate the same response doesn't mean that it won't generate revenue. And so I think that we kind of have to make sure we have this well-rounded matrix of content that we share that educates and sells and educates and sells. And LinkedIn is just one piece of that. And so I do think when you're thinking about, okay, when somebody first learns about your business, maybe they first learn about it on LinkedIn, but what if they want to know more? So then do they go to your website and do they see a blog, or do they see case studies, or what's kind of the next natural step if they want to learn more, but they're not ready to buy? Right. So you have
Right.
to give them some buffer in between, hey, I just found out about you and now I'm ready to purchase. And again, it also, you have to know your industry, know your product or service. You know, I the services that you and I offer, Tiffany, people might be making like a higher ticket investment. So sometimes that sales cycle is a little longer versus if I go on Amazon to get a phone case, right? Like that sales cycle is pretty quick because it's a cheaper purchase. I'm probably not thinking about it as much. So you do have to know your industry and know, what that sales cycle looks like. But I do think it's important to make sure you meet people wherever they're at, right? If they're just getting
I
to
like
know you,
that.
you're giving them something. If they're trying to learn a little bit more, what can you give them? If they're ready to purchase, then what do you give them? And so, and LinkedIn can play a role in all of those different areas, but it shouldn't be your only platform. And that's part of why we have been having this discussion is because, right, some people are too reliant on like only meta platforms or only and it's like no, like here's a critical component that I think you should take advantage of. And so that's where I would that's the recommendation that I would give is like think about your date me and your marry me content and think about the journey to how people get to know you to making a sale.
I
So
love that. I love that. I think that's something that can like stick and you can remember. Great, great, great analogy.
yes, no, thank you. I read that in Story Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Um
Yeah, yeah, that is a good one. I definitely love that book, and you're just making me want to revisit it
it's
now with more of those gems. That's a great recommendation for anyone
yeah.
trying to think about how to position their story better.
Yes, no, it's a great tool learning about just how to tell a really powerful story. But so as we start to round out this conversation, Tiffany, I just want you to tell the people what you're noticing on LinkedIn. What are some of the cool things that you think we're going to see more of on the platform? What are you excited about?
Yeah, ooh, what am I excited about? First of all, I'm excited that LinkedIn has so many tools in general. Like not necessarily a trend, but just something to take advantage of. Like, of course, like the audios lives, which I think are kind of all in one now. The fact that you can do newsletters, but I think the main, I guess, thing to tie that together is just the fact that you can do a lot of great repurposing on this platform. That's one thing that I love about it. Another thing that I'm kind of seeing more in the media industry too, about how people are actually like using it, is using it more for call outs for sources, and almost like how Twitter used to be back in the day, where people are kind of posting saying, especially journalists and writers saying, hey, I need to connect with this person. Can you connect me? And, or, we're looking for something. I have this ask and I have this professional network. It just makes so much sense that that type of interaction is happening there. And it kind of comes back to thinking about your engagement and wanting to be, that helpful person or somebody who's recommending a friend or a client, and seeing that type of, organic interaction. So I kind of love to see some of that culture from Twitter make it to LinkedIn.
Yeah,
And in that sense, while we're talking about kind of like Twitter and other platforms like TikTok and Instagram, being able to see different content types. LinkedIn was, I used to talk about LinkedIn and people would sigh at me and be like, oh my God, I don't want those fake motivational,
yeah,
long posts, toxic positive vibes. And if you know, you know. But I really encourage them to look past that. That's kind of like the old LinkedIn.
mm,
Now I think people are starting to see that you can use it for what you need to use it for. It's starting to become more of a social platform than a job hunting
yeah,
platform. And now you're able to see more short form content like
yeah,
videos and tweet type things and memes.
yeah. I do. I think the platform is much more open to different formats of content, but it still maintains that business environment. It's just not as buttoned up. And I think that's also just what makes it so cool, like for sales, is like you get to show up as yourself, but also as your business self. And that's kind of like expected. And
Yeah.
that's what everybody is there for. And so it's like, we're all our objective is pretty much the same. Like we might not be going about it the same way, but our objective here is to like get better, connect with people that can help us, that kind of thing. So I love that.
I love that too. Is there anything that stands out to you, or kind of all the same things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is like people being able to show up as their whole selves. I'm definitely seeing more of the video. Um, and I actually love that LinkedIn is making the app more compatible to video, that like the way that we're used to seeing it now. Because I think
Yes.
before, I don't know about you, but with doing content for clients, like video on LinkedIn seems to like still take your traditional, landscape, whereas in a lot of other, you have the vertical, more portrait type. And so I think I love that LinkedIn is
Yeah.
making more space for that, and I definitely think we'll continue to see more of that.
We sure will. The platform is evolving so much. I can't
Mhm.
stop preaching about how it's been so beneficial for both of us and our clients. Let's talk about, how we can take more advantage of this, or how, people can take the next step into making this a priority in 2025.
Yes, yes. So, Tiffany mentioned at the outset of this conversation that the reason we started this series was because through a survey from other business owners and entrepreneurs, we found out that their biggest issue was cash flow. And on the flip side of that was also they didn't have enough time or energy or sometimes the funds to invest in marketing, even though that they knew that they needed to do that for their business. And so for us, again, I gave you the story about how I eliminated everything that I was doing and just focused on this. Because I'm like, if I can only focus on one thing, what's going to give me the highest ROI? And for me, it was LinkedIn. And so that's why we made this. That's why we made this series, and that's why we made the content to cash flow offer, which is a series of VIP days with myself and with Tiffany. So the first one is with myself to understand what your brand story is, who you're actually serving, and building out your marketing strategy. And then the second part of that is then your VIP day with Tiffany, where she takes everything that I've put together, synthesizes that into your content strategy, and then optimizes your LinkedIn profile. So in less than 2 weeks, you have a done for you LinkedIn strategy and implementation tools for you to go, out the gate, be ready to rock and roll. And so this is not something that Tiffany and I have as an offer on our website. It's not something that we do often. We're really just testing this out to see, if this is really, what you guys need. And so we would love for you to take advantage of this offer and take advantage of this opportunity to invest in yourself and invest in a platform that's actually going to give you some ROI. I know that so many people's wheels are always spinning. They're overwhelmed by how they need to show up on this platform. Is this content going to generate any clicks? And this eliminates all of that guesswork. We go straight to the source, we get to the bottom of who you are and who you serve, and we build the plan that's made to help you generate revenue. Because with no revenue, you have no business. That's my new saying for the
100%.
rest, for the rest of the year and into 2025. No revenue, no business. And so this is our offer to you guys to work with us. And if the done for you offer is not something you think you're quite ready for, we have also created a digital LinkedIn guide. It's 27 bucks, but it will make you way more than 27 bucks if you
Yes, it
apply
will.
the knowledge that's in there. And so it basically takes what we just talked about. The first part of it is you getting to know your strategy and your audience. The second part is helping you audit and optimize your LinkedIn. So that is content to cash flow. Tiffany, what did I miss?
You nailed it. You hit every single point. I think the biggest thing is like, it's hard a lot of the time, running a business, and whether you're a solopreneur, whether you have a small team or a larger team, sometimes, being able to have some step-by-step assistance is always super helpful. So we have multiple options, whether you are ready to kind of, fully have some outsourced support. We have a lot of tactics that we've used on clients that have worked for us, and we can show you those case studies and apply it to you and come up with a custom plan. Or if you're just ready to kind of DIY and dip your feet, then definitely take advantage of the LinkedIn guide. You can find all of this information on our LinkedIn pages. We posted about it. There's a website where you can kind of check out more information. So please feel free to do that. But I hope that this was super helpful just to kind of provide everybody with some tips about getting started, what's worked, It's not a scary thing. I think everybody should really, invest in
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn in the new year. Yes.
Yes. No, I'm so excited that we got to take a chance to do this. Please DM us or email us if you have any questions. We'll make sure to share the link with everybody so you guys have the link to the offer and to the digital guide. But with that, we wish everybody a happy holiday season and a happy new year.
Happy holidays. Great chatting with you as always, Micah. Thank you, everybody.
All right, see ya.